Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as right now we're checking out this little lad, which is Blue Lobster X-Frank. Very strange third-party name, but promises to be quite a fun toy. Now before we begin, I should just mention that this review comes courtesy of the wonderful TF Source, so you'll find a link to their site and their listing for this guy in the video description below, so do go ahead and treat yourself if indeed you fancy it. Now this is a non-transformable figure, but just who is X-Frank anyway? Well, it's actually based after Autobot X, who featured in the original Generation 1 cartoon episode of the same name, and it's actually a kind of cobbled together Cybertronian robot form for Spike, who is more well known as the Autobot's human friend, so there you go. So yeah, a bit of a bizarre one, bit niche maybe, but I'm still looking forward to it. And in fact, I almost missed this guy on my radar. I mean, X-Transbots have one on the way too, if you can believe that, so we're going to have two options for Masterpiece styled Autobot Spikes, but yeah, can't wait to check him out. So here he is out of the box and looking, I suppose, pretty much as you might expect. I mean, it's definitely Autobot Spike, or Autobot X as he's originally known. Now, if you're not familiar with the episode, it's actually a creation by Sparkplug, who of course is Spike's father in the cartoon, and yeah, he builds this kind of hodgepodge Autobot body out of sort of spare parts, and obviously that's why he looks like, you know, kind of a bit of Prowl, a bit of the Datsuns and whatever else going on there. But then during battle, Spike is injured, his body's injured, and whilst he's in a coma and they're working on him, the doctors are working on him, they implant his consciousness into this spare robotic body, as you do, because that's modern medicine, or what passed for it in the 80s, I guess. And yeah, this guy looks, I mean, it's a crazy episode, but this guy looks like a very accurate rendition of what you see on screen. I mean, it's cartoon accuracy to the nth degree, that's fair to say. And it's funny, because I honestly, as I say, this guy kind of really skipped me past on my radar, you know, this X-Frank release, and it wasn't until I randomly sort of came across it, and I think someone mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, that was a thing. And I just really wanted to check it out. And yeah, you know, first impression, it looks really good. It's very, as I say, very cartoony. It really reminds me the style of the more recent masterpieces, you know, like Sunstreaker, Hound, in the proportions, the design of the sculpt. It looks like you've torn it just off the TV screen, which, you know, I'm sure isn't going to be for everybody. I mean, there are plenty of people out there that don't like the kind of more cartoony take of some of the more modern masterpieces, but if indeed that's the style that you really want to go for, then I think this guy certainly fits the bill. You know, is a Masterpiece styled Autobot Spike something that you need in your collection? This could be a good option in many ways. Right, let's get into the detail of this guy anyway. So first up is that head sculpt, which I actually really like. It's kind of got the kind of miserable look of the cartoon model. It was never kind of a happy thing, but still kind of got the mishmashed take on all of the various parts as well. I mean, clearly a bit of Prowl influence in there, as you can sort of see. I think the antenna on the side just here, that looks very Optimus Prime to me, and that is, you know, how it was in the cartoon as well. The expression, all of it, the proportions, it looks really good. Like the color of purple that they've used, and it does have some articulation going on. I mean, as you can see there, it will move from side to side quite nicely. And he can kind of look very far down and can look up a good little portion as well. So I think it's a real success. Really love the kind of slight shiny grey-blue eyes that he's got also. Now the chest area also looks really good just here. Of course, it's just kind of molded black on the one side, and then it's got this kind of painted white there. I do think, considering that it's white paint on a black finish, actually that's come up pretty nicely, and it's very it's decently saturated and looks really good. Now atop his right shoulder, you've got this cannon piece, which is very Hound. Of course, that's, again, all of his various parts are modelled after existing Transformers, or certainly most of them are anyway, and that is spot on for Hound's shoulder-mounted missile launcher, and here it looks really good, again with a bit of silver paint on there, very nice. And then over here you've got this other arm, which is kind of painted yellow just at the top. Paint doesn't look too bad, and again, I'm not really sure why it's painted yellow instead of just being moulded. I think it's probably just get that kind of white material underneath as well, PVC or whatever, and then paint it over the top. But it does look decent, and that really reminds me of Sunstreaker, actually, that top bit just there. And then he's got this little wing just there, door wing, which of course is very reminiscent of some of the Datsuns and Jazz. That doesn't move at all. I mean, it's this kind of pliable material, so it will bend a little bit, but it doesn't move or articulate in any way. Now coming down to his forearms, his lower arms, he's got this very Trailbreaker-esque end of the one arm, which has got a slight tinge as well here, slight sort of greyish, almost kind of greeny grey kind of colour to that piece. And then, as I say, this kind of Trailbreaker-esque kind of nozzle just there, which is really, really cool. This one then has this kind of just white arm with a black fist, and then this gun, which looks very much like Generation 1 Jazz, like his gun. In fact, that whole arm looks like very jazzy. And that gun does not come off. I just wanted to double check there just to make sure I wasn't saying that in error, but no, it's just kind of fixed on. But it does look really, really nice. Now, in terms of articulation at the arms, there's actually not too much. I mean, both of the shoulders will move, just up and down like that. You can kind of bend them to the side a little bit, and you see it will hold. But actually that's as a result of, if you go too far, them just pegging off completely. And it's these, it's these little pegs just there, and the way they hold in is what will allow them to kind of move just slightly to the side. But you know, it's not sort of intended to be that way, if that makes sense. So you can do it, but it's just not intentional. Now, because of this little nozzle on top, I do find that this one arm will, that's very much impeded at the back by the door wing. So again, you can get it to go, but you're really going to have to push quite hard against that door wing just there. And then there is a bit of elbow bend, but not too much. Like you get maybe just a little bit over 45 degrees at that elbow. Actually, a little bit more. If you really push it, you can get it just shy of 90, actually, I would say, just shy of 90. Now, this arm is kind of the same thing, but obviously can go much further because there's nothing impeding it, that little door wing at the back. Now, what is annoying is this shoulder joint on my copy is very loose, as you can see. So it just flops straight backwards, which I'm really quite disappointed by, actually. You can get it to hold if you're like I'm a pair here. If you really, really kind of just get it at the right angle, then it will just about hold. But I think, you know, if you tap it too hard or whatever, it's going to give. And it's yeah, as you can see just there, very, very loose indeed, which I do think is very disappointing considering the kind of minimal articulation on this guy to begin with. You know, to have one of the joints impeded like that is not a good look. And then there is no wrist articulation or anything, so it is just literally, you know, forward at the shoulder and forward at the elbow, and that's the only articulation you get at the arms. Now, just taking another look at him from the back, it's a very simple affair again, and it's just literally black and white on there, and you can see the kind of reverse, you know, that missile launcher and everything else, but you know, it looks decent. Now, coming down to the legs, and the first thing to mention is that there is no articulation at all in the legs. So these are not articulated legs, they are just kind of static. Again, there is a little bit of give just on account of the materials used, but no actual articulation. So they are just literally stuck in that kind of slightly bent at the knees position, which is probably going to disappoint some people. Certainly, it was something that I hadn't particularly clocked from the promo pics and things that I'd seen of this guy. I don't know why, it just hadn't really kind of occurred to me that the legs are completely static, but indeed they are. So is that a deal breaker for you? I don't know. It's minimal articulation on this guy. You know, just the arms and the head, that's it. And a decent bit of the head, but, you know, minimal, certainly. What is really interesting about the look of the legs is that this actually, I think, is kind of a very Jazz look again. I mean, particularly this wheel here with the spokes. That is Jazz's wheel, for sure, the way that it kind of sits. I think so, anyway. But it's green, obviously, with a little, and a very nicely painted red kneecap just there, which does look good. Often with red paint over darker colours, you know, it looks a bit, you know, not so good, but actually this is fine. And then his right leg over here, I think, is very reminiscent of Prowl again. Just the kind of, it's very simplified, but that design. And then he's got these kind of brown thighs as well, which, you know, again, look absolutely fine. So yeah, overall, there really isn't much articulation, and certainly a lot less than I was anticipating. So if you are expecting this to be some sort of, you know, non-transforming but super articulated, superposable toy, it isn't. Okay, it's fairly sort of static thing. Now there is actually wrist swivel, as you can see just here. It does just tilt quite nicely actually, and I obviously missed that first time. It's quite stiff, so I just sort of assumed that it was static when I couldn't get it to move. But actually, with a little bit more of a try, it will go. And you know, it's not so bad. I mean, like the head moves really nicely. All props to them on the head. That's really cool. And you know, you can, as I say, just fan out the shoulders just slightly. And I have managed to get that elbow to stick, but again, it's just a question of getting it at exactly the right angle, and then you know, friction will kind of hold it in place. But not with any real solidity, which is a shame. So I guess it really depends what you're looking for, if indeed you want, you know, an Autobot Spike of this kind on your shelf. You know, do you want it to be more posable than this? I mean, he doesn't exactly do a great deal in the cartoon, so how articulated do you need it to be? Are the legs not moving at all a deal breaker for you? Just worth considering. You know, I mean, even the arms, the upper body, you know, there's no waist swivel or anything like that. So he is kind of a bit of a static brick, all things considered, but a very pretty one. I mean, he does look great. I really like the look of it. I do think that, for me anyway, this thing's going to look fantastic in photos, and certainly for me, you know, just whacking it on a shelf alongside a few other Autobots, you know, I could see it looking quite nice. And what is it price-wise? It's what, $45, which, I don't know, some people will probably think that that's a fair deal, you know, and that actually for what you get and for what they need it to be, that's decent. And some people, you know, may tell you that that's actually way too expensive, particularly maybe Generations collectors or whatever that kind of can get a lot more articulation out of their toys at a similar price point. So it's completely up to you, I think, realistically. Is this thing worth the money or not? I kind of feel like people are going to disagree quite a bit. For my part, I think it's a real shame about that arm, you know, being a bit loose. That's really kind of sullied my view on it a little bit, because other than that, it actually feels very well made. I mean, again, the colors look great. It's nice and bright. It's lovely, you know, it feels really kind of saturated, all the colors. The materials feel good. I mean, it's PVC, I think, so it's kind of got that slight, not rubbery feel, but like soft plastic feel to it. But it feels sturdy and solid. I mean, you know, I've got no concerns, generally speaking. Just that arm is kind of the one kind of real black mark against it. Otherwise, very, very solid. I mean, I might try a bit of furniture polish or something and see if I can't kind of get that to you know, just feel a little bit more solid. It's just a bit of a shame. So yeah, weird one overall. I mean, I do still kind of like it. I've got a soft spot for it, but I think there's just something about this design and it being kind of out there that kind of appeals to me, realistically. But as I said, X-Transbots actually have a version of this toy on the way as well. No doubt that will be more expensive, or at least I would expect it to be. I don't think we know the price point for that yet. But equally, I would imagine it will have a lot more articulation. So what do you need? Do you want this one for $45, or do you want to get, you know, the X-Transbots one that's kind of maybe got more bells and whistles? Completely up to you, I guess. If indeed this is a character as such that you need for your collection to begin with. Anyway, let's do some comparisons. And first up, we're going to take a look at this guy versus the animation model. So this is what Autobot Spike appeared like in the cartoon. Actually, to my mind, the animation model looks at maybe a tiny bit more lumbering and kind of disproportionate to how he actually kind of appears in motion. So I think, if anything, Blue Lobster have kind of tried to, it's not that they've made him look more heroic, I think they've just kind of made him look a little bit more like he actually does, if that makes sense. Some of these cartoon models, when they're static, can sort of look a little bit exaggerated. But you can see that they've done a very close approximation. I think, colors wise, it's generally a pretty good match. If anything, they've dialed up the vibrancy a little bit on this dude, whereas some of the colors like the yellow on the arm and what have you look a little bit more dull on the old animation model again. And actually in the cartoon they do as well. So I think they've definitely kind of gone for a much more vibrant take on his appearance. But I think it works, and again, is this a decent approximation? I think so, and certainly when I look at it, I know exactly what it's meant to be. It's not really in any doubt. So, in that respect, I think they've done a pretty good job at bringing it to life. And then let's have a look at him with some actual Masterpiece toys. Now here we have him with MP 17 plus Prowl, 18 plus Blue Streak, and Make Toys Downbeat, which of course is their Jazz. This is not the premium version that I've just done a review of recently. This is the original version. But there you go. You can see he's actually quite a bit bigger than Carbot size. But I think it works. He's quite a hulking chap in the cartoon, and lo and behold, so he is here. And you can see some references that I've already kind of pointed out for these various characters, all contained within his design, which is quite interesting to see. I mean, it's obviously, again, a very stylized take. If you look at like Downbeat's feet here versus that green leg there, you can kind of see the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, or Prowl's chest. So, does that work for you? Is it too stylized? I mean, it really looks like it's been kind of ripped out the animation in many ways. So, I like it. And then again here, a couple more carbots. You've got Sunstreaker, Sideswipe, again, it's the MP12 Plus version, and Hound. And again, you can see stuff like Hound's missile launcher and how that carries over. The kind of slightly more stylized take on it, even though Hound himself is one of the kind of more slavishly cartoon-esque bots. But again, I think this looks pretty good, and maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't. I'm kind of happy with it. And then here's a few more Masterpiece styled lads, mostly mini-bots actually. You've got, officially anyway, you've got Bumblebee, MP45 Bumblebee and Wheeljack in there, and then you've got X-Transbots Boost standing in for Windcharger, Fans Toys Hunk for Brawn, who again I've just reviewed recently on the channel, and Bad Cube Huffer as well, Huff as it's called. And there you go, you can see all of these characters appear in that episode, Autobot Spike, and it's kind of nice to see the cast being rounded out. If indeed, you know, again, this is the kind of homage you need, then that's how it might look. And now let's see him lined up next to a couple of larger lads. Here's Masterpiece Ratchet and Ironhide, and yeah, he's not quite as tall as these two. Just comes up, you know, head height a little bit shorter, but certainly he's got a good bit of stature on him, it's fair to say. And then here we have one of the takes on Optimus Prime anyway. This is actually third party. It's Transform Element Op Leader, who again I've just reviewed recently on the channel, and absolutely digging him at the moment still. So he's doing a number of you know, cameos for comparisons at the moment. But here he is, and again I think they look pretty good together. I think the kind of vibrancy on you know, X-Frank does actually kind of work really well with some of these more cartoon accurate figures. So where are we at with old Blue Lobster X-Frank? Well, it's fair to say that I think as long as you go in knowing it's not super articulated and that it is, for the most part, apart from the arms and the neck, it's, you know, basically a brick. It's a very pretty brick, you know, and I think as long as you don't have expectations above that, you should be absolutely fine, certainly for the price point anyway. You know, it looks like the cartoon, the colours are great, it generally feels very well made, apart from that loose arm, which is really annoying, and that is a bit of a black mark on it, but I do think that I can probably fix that with a little bit of furniture polish. So I think, you know, I mean, really, where's your level of expectation at with this character being realised for your collection? Are you going to be holding out for the X-Transbots version and thinking that that might be a lot better? Up to you, do you know what I mean? Certainly for me, this is good enough for this character, I think. I'm still interested to see what X-Transbots do, but I think there's only so much I need out of an Autobot Spike, realistically. And I think that these guys have delivered. I hope that they do more stuff like this, because it's kind of weird and quirky, and I can't wait to see it. But for today, I'm happy enough to give it a toot. Now, as I mentioned, today's review comes courtesy of TF Source, so you'll find a link to their site in the video description below. But what are your thoughts on X-Frank here anyway? Do you like what you see? Are you a bit disappointed with it, that it's not more articulated? Would really love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so do drop me a note to say what you think. Otherwise, that's it from me, so don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.